Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're here today. Thank you for joining me. Today I have the amazing James McCrae. Am I saying it right? McCrae? Cool.
You got it.
Very nice. So we've got James with us today. We're going to be speaking about stories, about words, about the power that they have over how we view the world and uh, and even the power that they have over where we allow ourselves to go and the places we dare to explore. So, James, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're doing great.
I'm doing great and I'm happy to be here and happy to speak with you today. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So we were just a few seconds ago speaking before we started recording, and I think it's very fitting that your username. I found you on Instagram, and your username is "Words Are Vibrations." So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's funny because people ask me where I came up with that name for my Instagram. And the honest answer is that zero thought went into it. It was one of those decisions that like I had like a long-standing Instagram name that was Shit Your Ego Says, which was the name of my book. And that started to feel restrictive to me, like because it was kind of a joke, like Shit Your Ego Says. But I realized like that really put a limit and like parameters around what I could communicate if it was just tied back to shit your ego says. And I was trying to evolve out of that. And it was like one day, like I wasn't even thinking about changing my name, and like that just came to me out of nowhere. I wasn't even thinking about it. And then I just changed it like completely spontaneously without even thinking about it, which is funny because, and now I've grown into it and now I've learned what it means. And now I've like, you know, understand the whole philosophy behind it. But none of that was thought before I even changed it. So it's just like, it was, sometimes your gut instinct and your most spontaneous ideas are your best ideas without any second guessing, without any analysis, just relying on pure intuition and insight. And that's what this was. so, so first of all, it's just like, I just love some of my favorite ideas are ones that I don't even think of myself,
You know
things
what?
that are just kind of gifted.
Actually, I think I now that you mentioned that other name, I used to follow you when you had that name, but I mean, not like every day watching your stuff, but I was following you, and now that I'm connecting the two, and yeah, and even
Awesome.
the stuff you're posting now is very different to what you were posting back then, uh, and it's interesting how it came from just an intuitive flash, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like I outgrew the old one. You kind of outgrow your message, your brand, your anything. We outgrow things in life. We
Mm.
we evolve, and like when we evolve, it's like you know we often like try so hard to kind of keep things going, or like to prop up the old system of ourselves and the old system of our whatever it is, our business, our brand, our style of writing, our style of art. And when you're ready to change, I think it's just like just change, like leave all the old stuff behind and just jump ahead and keep going, keep moving, keep growing, keep changing, keep evolving. Otherwise you're going to get stuck in a rut. um and I see now, like, so words are vibrations. What that means to me now is that, I mean, I've always been a writer. Like, so I've been a writer since I was, like 13, 14 is when I started writing poetry. So I've always, and no matter what I've, even if I was doing other things professionally, like I used to work as a graphic designer and this and that, I was always writing. I was always writing poems or having a blog or that, or this and that. So words and the study and you know the use of words has always been very important to me. And I'm starting to see now, as I've gotten more into like spirituality and like understanding like how we create our own reality as people and as a society and as a collective, I'm really starting to recognize how critical language is in the shaping of our reality. Like you can only create something that can be first expressed. And when we fall into certain habits of speech and habits of language, that really starts to inform our reality. And on a macro level, that could be like watch the news for once, watch like the mainstream Fox News, CNN type news, and you're going to get pounded with messages of fear and division and panic. And every year it's the same thing. The story changes in terms of what we're supposed to be afraid of, but the tone of it and the language of it stays the same. And that really just creates a whole collective idea about the way the world is that we all just end up believing in.
Hypnosis.
It's mass hypnosis, and they call the news a broadcast because it's the broadcasting of a spell. Because language is magic, words are magic, and I pretty much mean that literally. Like you spell a word because that word has a spell to it, right? And one of my favorite kind of thinkers or philosophers is Terence McKenna, and he believed that literally because like one of his theories was that the world that we live in is not a material world, so to speak. Obviously, it manifests as a material world, but everything that's material comes from the immaterial, meaning mind creates matter and the imagination creates the world. So the physical world is just the final solidification of the world of ideas and mind and imagination. So therefore, we cannot change the world until we first change our language and our imagination and our ability to think and create. And when you can actually change your language, that changes what you can think, that changes what you can express and share. And on an individual level, it's people have we all have self-talk. Like we all go through our lives and we have a running narrative in our heads, whether we realize it or not. Most people don't realize it. I never used to realize it, and now I can recognize it and realize it. Because most people have thoughts in their head, and they just think, well, this is my thoughts in my head are just what's real. That's just who I am. That's what reality is. But they don't know that you can actually extract just because your mind says something doesn't make it true. You don't have to believe everything that comes into your mind. So through the power of, it's really just through the power of observation of your own thoughts, you can really kind of take control of that self-talk and maybe move it from a fear-based self-talk, like, oh, I'm so stupid, that person is so stupid, everything sucks, and why do I got to do this? And that just runs over and over and over in your head. Or you can change your mental dialogue through using, affirmations or just more constructive use of language. And in doing so, it really opens up your entire worldview. So in a nutshell, words are vibrations basically means like your words can either be, you can either create like a cage or like a locked prison that you're putting yourself in, or you can use words as a key to open doors. And we've all seen, like, some people can just kind of talk their way into things. You can talk your way into a job, you can talk your way into a relationship. You can not. So I think reclaiming our speech and reclaiming our language is one of the many steps to reclaiming our sovereignty. And I think that's one thing that we're all trying to do collectively as a society right now, is reclaiming our sovereignty, whether it's food, laws, health. And I think that language is a key part of that equation.
Mm. Yeah, that's very, very important what you're saying. I also think, and I understand how language, how the stories we tell ourselves, both consciously and unconsciously, how they are like what do you call this? What a painter uses to stand on to paint a building.
The latter.
Yeah, but it's a I'm getting the word in Spanish. It's andamio. It's the it's such a beautiful word, but it's more like a stand where he stands. Oh
Yeah,
my
high
God!
up, right? Like
Yeah,
like high up. Yeah.
I'm losing the word right now. So words can be like that, and become kind of the bones or the structure around which our worldview is created, and and through that worldview that we create, we limit the options that we have in a given situation. So you 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 are perhaps you get into a certain situation with somebody, or or yeah, let's say you get into an argument with somebody, and and this limitation of your words and of your worldview uh, limit the pool of options that you have to interpret the situation, and in turn create a solution, or a way to mediate with that person. um, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. Like I see people get into fights all the time, whether it's mostly these days it's on social media. But even in real life, people get into fights because, they don't have, like, if you are attacked by someone physically and you have no training of how to defend yourself, you're just going to get attacked. But if you are trained in martial arts or jujitsu or taekwondo, you have a whole collection of tools at your disposal to take the person attacking you, and you don't even have to hurt them. You just have to deflect them. You use their own, momentum to deflect the attack and protect yourself. And then you're like, I'm fine. And language is the same way. Like, people come at us and they attack us. Like, language causes so many problems because it's so limited. Language is amazing because it allows us to, read Shakespeare and to, do all these great things, but it's also limiting, where, like, people often phrase sentences in a way that's very one-sided, or, absolute, when in fact
Mm.
nothing is absolute, right? It's language is almost a lie or a symbol or a metaphor than it is true, because I could say something that's true in one context but not in another context, or it's true to my experience but not to your experience. So there's so many nuances to language. And when you have the tools to kind of understand where people are coming from, how to interpret their words in a way that's not going to be defensive, and to respond in a way that's not defensive or attacking, these are like using martial arts to defend yourself from an attack. People, or we have a bunch of untrained,
Mm.
defenseless people running around getting in fights online and in real life because they don't know how to find common ground because the language is flawed and broken.
We have untrained magicians getting into magic fights all over the world, even ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we are untrained magicians. I wrote a post a while ago how people we are all traumatized magicians
Mm.
because people there's a whole people some people go around talking about how people we can create our own reality, using our thoughts and our magic. We can create our own reality, and then the other people are just like, bullshit, like you can't create your own reality. There's all these other factors that are, you know and both sides are true. And I kind of think that, like, we are magicians, but we're traumatized magicians,
Mm.
meaning we don't know how to effectively use our power,
Mm.
both as individuals and as a society. So we're all just kind of flailing around trying to be right and to out argue each other because the
Mm.
world is run by lawyers and people who think like lawyers. So it's like you can win an argument through the manipulation of words.
Mm.
And to me, that's dark magic, is trying to manipulate people with words and to kind of, if you watch a politician, they're trying to manipulate mass consciousness through the use of the language that they use and the words they use. And they're very powerful magicians, but I think they're using their magic for not good ends.
Mm.
So as a writer, I accept and I love the responsibility to try to use words that free people and empower people as opposed to manipulating them um for selfish purposes.
And how important it is now that we're talking about this thing about traumatized magicians. Um, there's like this in our subconscious mind, we have installed a certain kind of grimoire, a certain kind of book of spells that we're taking spells from, uh, and we are casting them not just on other people, but we are casting them on ourselves. So creating this limited worldview. Oh, and the word was the scaffold or the scaffolding, right?
Scaffolding, sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we this subconscious book of spells that we're using. How this is one of the things that I've been most looking into and experimenting with in myself for the past couple of years, trying to understand more of how the mind works. So how the subconscious mind and and the programs that are there, uh, which were installed, many of them perhaps when we were small, most of them probably, by other magicians that were more, perhaps more traumatized than ourselves. So our parents and our society and our families. The one thing that I think is is like a light at the end of this tunnel is that I think from generation to generation we've been de-traumatizing ourselves. We are more aware each generation. You're kind of saying that you agree. We are mm, we are getting smarter. So basically, this that I was just saying, we are beginning to remember that we have this book of spells. I think we had forgotten about it, and we were unconscious that we were acting from a book of old spells that were broken, and that each time you used it would backfire on yourself, and now we're starting to learn, okay, so how can we start deleting those programs and replacing them with new ones, with better ones that not only empowers me but that also empowers me to empower others. And if we created a kind of network of what would you say, of healthy untraumatized magicians, we would uh, what an immense and amazing impact and exponential impact we would start having in the collective reality as well as the personal.
Yeah, I love it. I think that that's totally true. And I think that we live at an interesting time because you're right. So much of this is starting to change, like look how many people in the world right now are in some form of therapy. A lot, more than ever before. Back it used to be a stigma to go into therapy. Oh, like they got problems,
Oh,
especially
you're
for men,
crazy.
right?
Yeah.
For a man to like go to therapy and to like admit weakness, that was taboo. And because it was a macho culture that repressed the feminine energy, and that repressed all the trauma that we had been carrying with us
Mm.
for generations. I mean, I wonder sometimes, because I come from a bit of a military background, just in the sense that my father was in the military and he fought in the Vietnam War in the 70s. And, you know, my grandfather fought in World War II. He was actually taken captive by the Nazis and ended up escaping from Nazi prison camp, which is pretty cool. And you know, there's probably that's as far back as I know, but I'm sure my great grandparents and my great grandfathers, I'm sure that they were also thrown into wars
Mm.
that they, you know, they didn't quite know what they were fighting for, that they were told by a king or they were told by some leader that they had to fight. So they did, and they didn't have a choice. And that's a lot of human history. So it's hard to it's hard to overstate how big of an impact that can have generation after generation after generation of fighting, of killing, of repressing the feminine, of repressing all the trauma that you're building up, and then you just pass that down to the next generation. That's a lot of ancestral trauma that gets built up and
Mm.
passed down without having any outlet. And that's why you have domestic violence. That's why you have, suicide. That's why you have self-hate. It's passed down for God knows how long. And now it seems like it's shifting, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it does seem like, you could make a lot of arguments for, it's a shifting of one age to another, one epoch to another, age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. Like there are a lot of metaphors, I think, for the changing of the tides that we're seeing now. But I think one of the results is that um, it's no longer okay to suppress your trauma and pass it down. There are voices saying, not to do that. There's acceptance. There's mental health awareness all over. There are female voices in positions of leadership and with big platforms, and it's a beautiful time in that sense. I think we still have a long way to go. I still think there's a lot of subconscious trauma that we're holding on to and passing around and throwing at each other without knowing it, and blaming each other for it instead of looking at ourselves. But it's beautiful that we can't, for the most part, people don't just like kind of blindly go into war anymore. And so a lot of people who join the military now, unfortunately, they need to, because there's financial incentives and they're provided with opportunities that frankly they couldn't find elsewhere very easily. But that military industrial complex, the has been exposed, I think, for what it is.
Mm.
And it's people are harder to fool now. And I think that's because they've we as a society around the world have stepped into awareness a little bit more. And maybe it has something to do with the internet having connected us all, and we can see each other's lives, and we can see um, the perspective of marginalized people in a way that we couldn't before. So yeah, I think we still have a long way to go, but I think that we're, as a society, on the right track to healing a lot of what has been traumatizing us over the generations.
Yes, definitely. Very beautifully said. Um, Give me just one moment. Yes. So yeah, because what you were just saying reminds me, it makes me think, well, a few things came to my mind while you were speaking, because everything that you said was like so on point. Um, on the one hand, this idea that no, first I'm gonna say something else. It's like, you know, people are less. Uh, you said people are harder to fool, you know, which means that because everything's out in the open now. So because perhaps of the internet and seeing other people's points of view, um, it used to be crazy to think or to even express that perhaps governments had a shadow, or that they didn't necessarily always have the people's interest in mind. Now it's something that even my parents would be like, yeah, of course it's kind of like that. And in fact, they might even admit that they've always kind of known that it was like that, but it wasn't perhaps the right thing to say before. You know, it would be normal that, hey, well, governments are kind of crazy, but they're good. So that, but now it's like, no, they're crazy and they're crazy. Let's not justify the the crazy behavior because of some good behavior. Um, and some another thing that came is also about this idea of the spell book that we carry. How much, because of what you said of your grandfather and your military background in your family, how much we inherit the spell book from our ancestors. It's handed down from generations, and that's why uh, in a world that's evolved so much so quickly, we find ourselves with outdated manuals, outdated spell books, uh, and needing to update them because the world is requiring an updated system. uh, Before, you know, for perhaps, I don't know, 10 generations or whatever, the same kind of concepts and the same uh, worldviews could be inherited and passed down, and they would more or less work. um, you know, there were uh, hundreds and hundreds of years of slavery, so there was no need to modify that. Or the world didn't require the new generations to modify their beliefs, for example, about slavery. But nowadays, you could kind of give a pass to an old person, to a very old person. Okay, they're from another generation, they don't have an updated system. But the younger generations, it's like it's not even in there. um,
No, it's crazy. I mean, for a younger person, I mean, our age or especially younger, the idea of slavery is so, I mean, it's unthinkable. And it wasn't that long ago that
mm,
it was normal. And it's yeah, it's shocking. And that's kind of why I think that people talk about cancel culture, right? Like people are calling people out online and canceling people for things they said
mm,
10 years ago. And I think cancel culture is a double-edged sword because I think it has resulted in, I mean, you could debate certain areas where it's gone too far, and it's like maybe like it stretches the limits of common sense at times, but I've come around to, being, generally speaking, in support of what is called, as a blanket term, cancel culture. Not that I think we should go around canceling people who don't agree with us. That's crazy. But like, I was watching a Britney Spears documentary that came out recently, and they had TV footage in the documentary from the late 90s and the early 2000s. And that wasn't that long ago. That was like, I was in high school, and it was shocking to see how cringeworthy and how like unsensitive the late night jokes were. There was a game show. I think it was Family Feud. It was a game show that had a whole category that was making fun of Britney's mental health.
Mm.
And it was, I was just cringing watching it because it was like and that was not that long ago. So things don't change unless people make them change, right? So what's called cancel culture is really like, it's a generation of people that are coming in to tear down the old system. And when you're tearing down an old system, you're not going to always do it with the best precision. Mm-hmm. You're going to cancel someone who's a good person because of some mistake or something. Some things that are not fair are going to happen. And that sucks. But in general, things are now becoming unacceptable that were in recent years fully acceptable. I watched an episode of this sitcom called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And when I was, back when that was on, whatever it was, 15 years ago, I thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny show. It was very popular. And I watched it now and I could barely watch it. It was just like, this is just like so off color. So yeah, so basically I've come around to seeing the big picture. And if there was no cancel, quote, I'm using cancel culture for lack of a better term, but if there was no cancel culture, we might still have slavery. We need to tear down the old normals to make sure we've got space to live in that's going to be more sensitive. And that's like, and I like humor. I like comedy. I defend comedy. I think that we need to let our comedians be free to make jokes about things because we can't take things too seriously. But at the same time, we need to make sure that society is a safe space where everyone can speak freely, regardless of their gender, race, sexuality, like any of that stuff. So it's interesting times.
Definitely. And what about the stories that we tell ourselves in a more personal level of, I can't do this, I'm not good enough? Those types of stories, I think those very personal ones are the main things that we should be, or one of the main things that we should be focusing on, because you were speaking about cancel culture, so we can point fingers all day long, but there's going to be some moment when we've pointed the fingers to everything that was wrong out there, and there might still be something to work in here. And I think one of the main things, or some of the main things, are this self-worth, and the limits that we the spells of limitation that we cast on ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that everything, our relationship with the world starts with our relationship with ourselves.
Mm.
That in every case, like just like love, for an example. I don't think that you can truly love or be loved by another until you fully love yourself. Our relationship with ourselves, how we treat ourselves, um, is a template for how we treat others and for how we allow others to treat us. If you really, 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 really love yourself, you're not going to allow someone to treat you like shit because you don't deserve that. You deserve better. But if you hate yourself and you're just like, I'm just an idiot, I'm worthless, then you accept people treating you like you're worthless because you don't have those boundaries set up to protect yourself in the way that you deserve to be protected. So yeah, I mean that really is the topic that my book Shit Your Ego Says was about, was like all the things that your ego tells you. And I'm not good enough, and I don't deserve happiness, or I don't deserve to get paid that much. And yeah, I mean the lesson that I learned from my own life was just to be aware of my thoughts. Because again, I think people just let these narratives play out in their heads, and the movie keeps playing and the movie keeps playing, and until you come in and change the movie, you're going to keep experiencing the same stuff because you're stuck in a mental hamster wheel. So
is that where spirituality came in for you?
yes, sort of. I mean, I that's when I started to understand more like the psychology of spirituality, right? Because I think there's a big intersection between psychology is kind of it's one way that spirituality can be put into practice almost. So like again, things like affirmations, they sound trite sometimes, like repeating good things to yourself, but there was a time when they were helpful for me. Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, I think that psychology is one way that spirituality can be put into practice. Like, I don't think spirituality is any different than real life, or, it's all connected. Spirituality is just when you get further and further away from the, the scientific materialism of the world we live in. Spirituality is just kind of a blanket term that gets thrown on that stuff. But there are some good, like the spiritual community talks a lot about things like affirmations, and that can seem silly sometimes, like repeating positive statements to yourself. But there was a time in my life where it was really helpful, because whenever I recognize my ego giving me negative self-talk, and it could be anything. It could just be like being afraid. It could be feeling insignificant. It could be not feeling like I was worthy of, love or success or money, things like that. The first most important thing to do is to catch yourself thinking that way, not let it run on autopilot, but catching yourself and then actually putting a different, feeding that mental movie with a new script. So you need to actually write the script that your mental movie is playing out, and that could be whatever you need to do. Like I think I used to just almost whenever I heard my ego coming in with negative self-talk, I would just repeat like something like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, which it's kind of an affirmation, but it was the important thing was that I was recognizing it, and I was just saying, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Or now I might be more sophisticated with, I might say like, like just like thank you, thank you, thank you. And the whole point is to just focus on gratitude, on a better feeling. And
With that be quiet, I think maybe I would express that you were kind of creating a buffer between you, the
yeah,
observer of the ego, and that ego. So creating some distance is a very important tool to begin to detect what the ego is saying on autopilot.
exactly. It was a good yeah, at the time it was what I needed, I guess. um yeah, so I guess, you can call that spirituality, you can call that psychology, but it's really just having I guess it's for me it's almost Buddhism, right? Like I'm basically a Buddhist, not like in a official sense, but that's kind of where I'm mostly aligned in terms of my you know
Your
spiritual
affinity.
philosophy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why meditation has been so helpful for me,
Mhm.
because meditation is, there are a lot of practices for recognizing your thought patterns and becoming the observer of those thought patterns. But simple meditation for me is just the best practice. I meditate every single morning, and it doesn't need to be long or special. It's just maybe like 8 or 10 minutes, and that's you know doing it consistently for a long
Mhm.
period of time is more important than trying to like hype yourself up to do like an hour and then make it a big deal, and then you end up not doing it at all. So, but yeah, when meditation, you sit with your own thoughts and you just observe them. And people think like, oh, I don't know how to meditate, I'm not good at meditating. And I don't think there's a wrong way to meditate. I don't think you can do it wrong. It's just observe your thoughts. And that doesn't mean stop your thoughts. It doesn't mean like conquer your thoughts. It doesn't mean to be like the master of your thoughts. It just means observe them and to recognize what they are and what they're saying. And and that's a good first step, I think, to
Mm.
you know um getting rid of all the old spells from the old spell
Mm.
book, like that, like you said. And that gives us a fresh page to you know start creating better spells.
Mm. Yes, totally. Begin to see those spells that are constantly, because they're constantly running in the background, um, and 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 they are many times they are disempowering ourselves, because I think there's this fear that we have of of manifesting our full potential. It's kind of like we know we are gods. We are we know we are the greatest magicians ever, and we kind of fear the consequences of accepting and of accepting that, and standing into the role, uh, and taking the uh, taking the call of what it implies, and the
Yeah, I mean,
sovereignty
it's
and the
true.
responsibility. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to the path of least resistance is, it's the easiest, right? It's like, I don't want just like go along with emotions and just do go wherever society is pushing you, and just kind of just kind of follow the crowd. And you know that's like the easiest thing to do, but it's also the least rewarding.
And you know what? It's easy. Sorry to cut you off, but you make me think. It's easy because we've been practicing that since we were small. So it's easy because we have actually put in the time to practice that skill of taking the path of victimization and blaming others, and being irresponsible of ourselves. But what you were just saying about meditation and all that, and observing your ego, is a new practice that it's not new, but a new practice that we can uh, include in our mental diet to
Yeah,
and practicing that enough makes our taking the call of our full potential, that becomes the path of least resistance. I'm not
Yeah.
completely there yet to say for certain, but it definitely looks that way.
Well, it's habits, right? And
Mm,
everything's a habit.
yeah.
And when we've been trained our whole lives to do something, it becomes habitual, and then it becomes, once you've done something for so long, to then admit that you weren't living the best way, it is a huge blow to the ego, because it undermines all the years you've put in living a certain way, right? But so habits aren't easy to change, but they can be changed. I mean, it's just like, you know working out. Working out is clearly very good for you.
Mm,
It feels good. To After you've done it, you feel satisfied. You
mm,
feel, you know your body feels good. Your mind feels clear. But to actually go to the gym, or to to actually get yourself to work out, you don't always want to. You're just like, I'd rather just watch this show, or I'd rather just do X, Y, and Z. I'd rather just
yeah.
eat a meal, because it's so much more easy. But then you don't change, you don't
Yeah.
get better. Whereas you actually work out, then you feel better afterwards. So I think it's the same with like living with intention. And it's easy not to live with intention. It's easy just to go with the motions,
Mm,
but you're not going to be truly fulfilled until you actually change those habits and start living with intention. And then, like any habit, it gets easier the more you do it. So it's just like a muscle. You just got to build it up, and it's kind of hard at first, but then after a while, it becomes second nature.
mm. And I think an idea to add to that is trying to identify yourself with the future version of yourself. So like, what do you want? Where do you want to be in X amount of time? Or don't even think about time, but what would you like to incarnate in your life? What would you like to be? And then, like, back engineer. So okay, you would, so then you have to, for example, if you would like to be very fit, okay, you're gonna have to exercise perhaps every week, a few times a week. And when the procrastination perhaps comes up, you could be, all right, so the procrastination is the procrastination of my past self, but I am my future, more evolved self. And I know that to be who I am, I did this thing today. Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great technique. Is I've done that too, where it's like visualization, where you
Mm,
visualize the future version of yourself. And what I found it helpful is the more detail you can visualize in the possible, the more the more the more you can visualize, the just the more vivid the visualization becomes. So it's like, where are you? What are you wearing? Who's with you? What else is in the room that you're in? And really just kind of visualize like the kind of ideal version of yourself, and then not only see it, because visualization is important, but I think that emotions are even more important, and
those are the two.
emotions are more powerful than thoughts, right? So what are you feeling in that moment? Like, what is your optimal state of feeling? And then when you sit and you can embody that feeling, you could say you start to attract things into your life which align with that feeling. Or it's just a matter of, once you know what that feeling is, you can strive feel that way. And that's kind of what the gratitude practice is. You know, there's or it's like there's this great meditation in Buddhism called the loving kindness meditation, where you just focus on loving kindness to yourself, to others, to the world. And that's why it's so important to feel gratitude. That's why sometimes if I have a negative mindset, I'll just say thank you, thank you, thank you, because that is bringing you to the emotional state of gratitude, which is going to help you, you know, do certain things in your life that are going to help you to achieve that sustainable state of gratitude, which is where we all want to be. So yeah, visualization, and then the feeling of the emotions that you want to feel as a practice are very powerful.
And the key for that, some people might say, okay, but how do I feel a feeling? How do I? And something that I sometimes share is the memory. So just as you would be visualizing a future potential that you want to achieve, okay, look back at a time, at a moment when you were with somebody that you love, with somebody that you appreciate, when something in your life happened where you felt gratitude, and like try to look in on that feeling, on that sensation, that emotion, that inner state. Try to not try sorry do that. Go be that feeling, and remember it, and from your memory bring it into the present moment, in spite of how hard it might be because of whatever you might be feeling today. Bring it here, and you want to be that future version of yourself. So you must, in a way, um, not get stuck in the current version, because not that the current version is wrong or there's anything bad with it, but if you want to incarnate something new, you eventually are going to have to let go of what is not that. And so bringing from memory the connection to the emotion, and incarnating it in the present through a loving kindness meditation, like you said. uh, this goes into the synchronizing the brain waves and the heartbeat. um, what's the name they use, the heart brain coherence. um, because like you were saying, and I think this is so important and so cool that we got here, uh, not just a thought but also the feeling. Okay, so those, I think, are the two keys. They for me, they represent the masculine and the feminine energy. And what's kind of one of the things that's out of whack in our world today is that in this very strong imbalance between those two energies. And through thought, we can be very, very masculine, and okay, so I want to be this way, I want to feel this way, I want to be surrounded by these people, I want to my health to be certain way, my economy, um, or my finances, I think is the word, my my work, uh, my I want to work from doing what I love. Okay, so get all that picture, and now how would that feel? And that second key is going to be, perhaps one of them is like the key, and the other one is flipping the thing, and I'm pushing the door open.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. So it's just and just to, suspend your disbelief. Like we can always
Right.
we can watch a movie and be transported somewhere, and we can do that mentally too. We can. I think it's so important to suspend disbelief, because disbelief is all your anxieties and fears and self-criticism. It's all tied into this idea of just disbelief in what is possible and what is possible for you to create. I think that, and I haven't gotten to this point, but the great teachers and of all time, and the full, when you play this out to the full extent, you can totally have control over your emotions and thoughts at any given time instantaneously. So no matter where you are, no matter how dire things appear externally, you can attain a state of inner peace and love and joy and happiness despite everything. And yeah, the power of imagination and the ability to suspend your disbelief as if you were watching a movie. If you don't necessarily second guess the movie that you're watching, you just kind of let it play out. So I think you can do that in your own, meditation or intention practices to achieve that, like you said, the mental and emotional aspect as if it was real, before it actually is real. So yeah, that putting yourself in that state is it's important.
Yeah, learning to feel it before it happens. And I was thinking, you mentioned about your grandfather being in a war prison and he escaped.
Yeah.
Did you meet your grandfather?
No, he
Oh.
passed. He passed away when my mother was a kid. So I never got the chance to meet him. But we never actually knew. We knew that he was a prisoner of war in World War II, but we didn't know we didn't know the details as a family. We knew he escaped, but no one really knew the details. And then a while back, out of nowhere, my grandmother got a phone call, and there was this man who he had, my grandfather helped him escape, and they
Wow.
escaped together in World War II. And that guy was writing a book about the whole experience. So now there's this book out about my grandfather and how he escaped from the Nazis and how he helped others escape. And it's just great because we never knew the details. And now it's like, oh, there's actually a book about it. So that was a real treat for my family to learn the stories.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you been, like, have you read it, or do you know, or perhaps your grandfather's friend, he told a little bit about the story, a little bit about it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically, so my grandfather was on a plane that was shot down. I think it was his first mission. It was like his first time in a, in a plane in Germany, and they were shot down, and he was taken captive. And I don't know how long he was in the prison, but at a certain point, they were marching all these prisons across Germany, and it was like the dead of winter, and it was called like the Black March, I think, because they were marching like hundreds of prisoners across a big patch of Germany in the dead of winter. And it was something like, I don't know if he left the line to go like take a piss. He was either taking a piss, or he was pretending that he had to take a piss. So that, like, and like basically like he went, and they let him go like relieve himself in the woods, and I think he just ran, and like ran as fast as he could, and like I guess he got away, but then he was like, him and his friend that he rescued were like stranded in the German wilderness in the middle of winter with nothing to eat and nowhere to go. And they eventually stumbled across a small encampment of Russians who were cooking potatoes. and the book describes how fast they ate those potatoes because they were starving and they had these these cooked Russian potatoes that kept them alive and saved their lives. And then the Russians brought them to, I guess, the some British soldiers who eventually um, ended up getting them back home to America.
Wow.
And the funny part is maybe the funniest part of this story is that my grandfather was by blood 100% German.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a firstborn American German nationality. So he was only one generation removed from being raised in Germany, in which case he almost certainly would have been a soldier on the other side. But he had left one generation before, and he had came back to Germany to fight against the Nazis. So
Yeah.
how funny is that?
Yeah, he would have been one of the guys taking the prisoners to the other prison.
Exactly. There's a shows how arbitrary war can be sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, and the things that he must have learned uh, through all of his life, but particularly through that experience. I mean, we were speaking about the spells that we inherit from our ancestors. On the one hand, we could say because of war, we've inherited um, spells of aggression and discrimination, but also through stuff like your grandfather went through. Uh, you may have inherited some wits about you and some some abilities to to wiggle through difficult situations and find your way around it to return home in a way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that nothing is black and white. We've been passed down trauma, like we talked about from our ancestors, but we've also been passed down good qualities as well, and dealing with trauma teaches you certain lessons.
Mm.
So yeah, there are definitely some. There's always a silver lining to everything, even going to war. Is I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is a whole book about
Mm.
this guy who has to fight in a war, and he doesn't want to, and he doesn't understand, and basically Krishna just explains to him like how life is, kind of about suffering or not. It's about taking on the suffering of life while still understanding that this is all temporary and seeing the big picture and how we're all soldiers in the battle of life, and it's not supposed to be perfect. It's here as a growth experience. So
Right, we all have
it's true.
our role to play, our our assigned role, and it's it's not only smart, but it's what we're here for. We're here to fight our inner fight, to beat our own self-limiting beliefs, and to bring forth to the world the best version of ourselves, that future version that we were saying. We are here to actualize it, to become it, and to make it present, and to share its light with the rest. And I really appreciate, this has been a beautiful conversation. We've touched so many beautiful things. I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with me. Is there any last words you would like to share, or maybe first tell us, help people know where they can find you, to connect with your stuff. You post very insightful, also funny, and 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 witty, and sometimes what's the word, subversive, or not subversive in the negative way, but all of that in a very fun way, you keep sharing, and I thank you for that contribution. I mean, your lavender hat shows the kind of personality that you have and the type of humor that you might express. So yeah, where can people find you?
Well, thank you, friend. I really appreciate that. My Instagram is my home base, and all other links are there, including the link to my book. And my Instagram handle is words are vibrations, all one word.
Mm. Perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is there some closing words that you would like to vibrate for everybody that's listening?
Yeah, just everyone's very serious these days, and everyone is just like very serious with their beliefs and their opinions. And for me, I'm just like, don't take any of this too seriously.
Mm.
It's serious and it's not. Our lives are serious to a degree, but I don't think that this current life that we're living is the be all end all. I think that there's a lot more to reality. I mean, much, 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 much more than reality than the video game we're currently playing here on Earth. So, like you said, we're here to, to play the game and to play our role and to learn lessons. But I think this is just a blink in the eye of eternity, and it's serious to a degree, but it's really not that serious at the end of the day. So just like, don't get caught up in all of the chaos and drama around you. Just kind of enjoy your experience while you're here, even if it's not everything you want it to be. Keep playing the video game, keep trying to get to the next level, but don't forget to have fun on the ride, and then just to enjoy yourself.
Mm. All right. James McCrae, thank you so much for being here with us in Mystic Times. I want to thank the watchers and listeners for watching and listening, and to remind you to comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things that the that the social media aspect of all of this offers us. Okay, all the possibilities for us to to share all this content with more people and to stay connected between each other, like-minded people who are uh, awakening to all of this much more that there is to reality. So thank you so much, James, one more time for being here. Namaste and bye bye.
Thank you.